On the night of June 24, 2009, Michael Jackson gave the performance of his comeback. He was sharp. He was joking with his dancers. His voice hit every note on Billie Jean. Everyone in that arena went home believing the King of Pop was back. Less than 24 hours later, he was lying on a hospital gurney, declared dead at 50. And here's the part almost nobody knew at the time. His death wasn't a heart attack. It wasn't drugs he took alone in secret. It was something far more disturbing. In his final hours, there was a doctor in the room with him the entire time. A doctor being paid $150,000 a month to keep him alive. And when it mattered most, that doctor spent the critical minutes doing everything except saving his life. So we're going to walk through it hour by hour. The exact timeline of Michael Jackson's last day, pieced together from trial testimony, phone records, and the coroner's own report. Before we start the clock, take 1 second to subscribe, because this channel digs up the stories the headlines never fully told. Now let's go back to that final night. It's around 7 in the evening at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. Jackson is rehearsing for This Is It, a run of 50 sold-out shows in London that's supposed to relaunch his career. That night, he looks good. Director Kenny Ortega sees no alarming distress, just the usual perfectionism. Jackson runs through his catalog, teases the crew, and rides up on a cherry picker for the big finale. But here's what makes it so unsettling. Just 5 days earlier, on June 19th, Ortega had seen something that scared him. Jackson showed up lost and incoherent, shivering in the middle of summer. He was so worried he emailed the promoter saying something was deeply wrong with his friend. An emergency meeting was called, and one man stood up and told everyone not to worry. That man was Dr. Conrad Murray. A little after midnight, now June 25th, rehearsal ends and Michael Jackson's motorcade heads back through the quiet streets of Holmby Hills. Sitting silently in the back seat, he appears exhausted, but not seriously ill. Around 1 a.m., he arrives at his rented mansion on North Carrollwood Drive. Most of the house is asleep. Only a few staff members remain awake, including Dr. Conrad Murray, who is waiting upstairs. The house is silent as Jackson climbs the staircase, leaning on the banister, heading for the bedroom that's about to become the center of a tragedy. Before we continue, it's important to understand one man at the center of this story, Conrad Murray. He was an interventional cardiologist, a heart doctor. He first met Jackson back in 2006 after treating one of his children in Las Vegas, and the two struck up a friendship. When the This Is It tour came together, Jackson personally requested Murray as his on-tour physician. Murray reportedly first asked for $5 million. He settled for $150,000 a month. Here's the problem. Murray had no formal training in anesthesia, none in sleep medicine. And yet, for weeks, he had been doing something no responsible doctor would ever do. He'd been ordering propofol, a powerful surgical anesthetic, by the gallon. A Las Vegas pharmacist later testified that he shipped more than 4 gallons of the drug to the Santa Monica apartment Murray shared with his girlfriend. 4 gallons for one patient to help him sleep. Michael Jackson's war with sleep was legendary and brutal. Colleagues from the 1990s remembered him lying awake for days, hallucinating from sheer exhaustion. By 2009, that chronic insomnia had turned into something deadly. He had become convinced that the only thing on earth that could give him real rest was propofol, the milky white liquid doctors used to knock you unconscious before surgery. Jackson called it his milk. Understand what that drug actually is. In a hospital, propofol is treated like a loaded weapon. It's given by trained anesthesiologists with oxygen monitors and emergency equipment, and someone watching your breathing every second, because the line between sleep and death is razor thin. Michael was getting it in his bedroom, night after night, like a nightcap. There were no proper monitors, no alarms, just one unqualified doctor and a man who couldn't sleep. And that night, that man was desperate. He hadn't truly slept in days, and the pressure of 50 sold-out shows was crushing him. At around 1:30 in the morning, Murray begins what would become a catastrophic chain of treatment. He starts with a 10-milligram tablet of Valium. It doesn't work. Around 2 a.m., he injects lorazepam into Jackson's veins. By 3 a.m., another dose. Jackson is still wide awake, still agitated, still begging for his milk. Near 5 a.m., Murray gives him midazolam, a stronger sedative. And still, sleep won't come. For the next several hours, all the way past sunrise, Murray keeps stacking these drugs on top of each other. Fully aware, he's layering one powerful sedative over another. Each one of them quietly slows your breathing. Together, the danger multiplies. By about 10 a.m., almost 9 hours in, Jackson is still awake and still pleading. Then, at around 10:40 in the morning, everything turns. Worn down by hours of begging, Murray finally gives in. He hooks up an IV line and pushes propofol into Jackson's bloodstream. Within seconds, Jackson's breathing slows and his eyes close. He drifts under at last. It's a sleep he will never wake from. A patient on propofol should never be left alone, not even for a moment. But Murray doesn't sit and watch. According to phone records, in the hours surrounding Jackson's death, Murray made or received around 11 phone calls, totaling nearly 90 minutes. He was juggling calls and texts to his clinic, to patients, and to multiple women. The most chilling call comes at 11:51 a.m. Murray phones a Texas cocktail waitress named Saad Anding. She testified that she did all the talking, telling him about her day for about 5 or 6 minutes. Then she realized he'd gone quiet. She says, "Hello, hello, are you there?" And what she hears instead is mumbling and coughing, and then nothing. Prosecutors believe that around 11:57 a.m. was the exact moment Conrad Murray looked over and realized Michael Jackson had stopped breathing. There were no monitors hooked up to catch it, no alarm. By the time anyone noticed, the most famous entertainer alive had likely been without oxygen for far too long. What happens next is the part that sealed Murray's fate in the eyes of the law. A man who finds his patient not breathing has one job: call 911. Immediately, Murray didn't. Bodyguard Alberto Alvarez testified that when he rushed into the bedroom, Murray was frantic. But his first instinct wasn't to scream for an ambulance. It was to clean. Alvarez said Murray ordered him to start gathering up propofol vials and an IV bag, stuffing them into a brown canvas bag before anyone called for help. Paramedics later said they saw Murray stashing things away too. The 911 call didn't go out until 12:20 p.m. That's a gap of roughly half an hour from the moment he likely knew something was wrong. Spent hiding evidence instead of fighting for a life. When the call finally comes at 12:21, it's a panicked young bodyguard on the line, not the doctor. He tells the dispatcher he needs an ambulance immediately, that a doctor is there, and that the patient isn't breathing. The operator tells them to get Jackson off the soft bed and onto the floor for CPR. In the background, you can hear Murray asking if anyone in the room knows how to do chest compressions. And that detail matters, because Murray then performs CPR completely wrong. He presses on Jackson's chest with one hand while propping his other hand under Jackson's back, on a soft mattress, which makes the compressions nearly useless. This was a cardiologist. Chest compressions are the most basic skill he has. The recording, later played in court, became a haunting audio document of a death that should never have happened. Paramedics arrive at 12:26 p.m., just 5 minutes after the call. They find Jackson on the bedroom floor, flatlined, with fixed, dilated pupils. One paramedic, Richard Seneff, later said the scene felt staged. The room was too warm. The IV was still attached. Something was off. They try everything. They hook up a defibrillator, but there's no heartbeat to shock back. They push emergency drugs. Nothing they know, standing in that room, that Michael Jackson is already gone. But Murray, identifying himself as Jackson's personal doctor, insists they keep going and rush him to the hospital. So they do. By around 1:07 p.m., they load him into the ambulance and drive to UCLA Medical Center. No lights, no sirens. The paramedics believe they're transporting a man who's already dead. At the hospital, a team of more than a dozen doctors works for over an hour. Murray begs them not to give up, but Dr. Rochelle Cooper, who treats him, says she never once feels a pulse. At 2:26 p.m., on June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson is officially pronounced dead. Then comes the moment witnesses said was the hardest of the entire ordeal. Jackson's 3 children had been brought to the hospital. They didn't know yet. When the family was told that their father was gone, his daughter Paris, only 11 years old, broke down. She screamed that she wanted her daddy, that she wanted to go with him, and collapsed in tears. Her older brother Prince stood frozen and broken. Their grandmother Catherine clutched her chest and wailed. Hardened medical staff, who'd seen years of tragedy, struggled to keep their composure. It was the sound of a childhood shattering in real time, all because of something that never had to happen. When police searched the mansion, the truth started spilling out. Inside Murray's medical bag, hidden in a closet, detectives found a stash of pharmaceuticals, propofol vials, some of them empty, bottles of sedatives, an oxygen tank in the corner, medications tucked into hidden spots around the room. This wasn't a medical practice. There were no patient charts, no monitoring logs, nothing. It was a secret makeshift anesthesia ward built inside a luxury rental for one patient. And then came the evidence that destroyed Murray's defense. His lawyers argued that Jackson did this to himself, that he swallowed pills and injected the propofol while Murray was out of the room. But investigators found Murray's fingerprints on the propofol bottle tied to the fatal dose. Michael Jackson's fingerprints were not on any of the vials or medical equipment. The man supposedly injecting himself hadn't touched a single bottle. The expert who literally wrote the official guidelines for propofol, Dr. Stephen Schaefer, called the self-injection theory a crazy scenario. The coroner's findings made the tragedy even sharper. When Dr. Christopher Rogers performed the autopsy, he found something striking. For a 50-year-old man, Michael Jackson's organs were remarkably healthy. No heart disease, no liver damage, no major blockages. His body, on the inside, was strong. The toxicology report told the real story. Lethal levels of propofol, combined with a cocktail of sedatives. The death was ruled a homicide, caused primarily by acute propofol intoxication. That healthy body means one devastating thing. Michael Jackson almost certainly would have survived that night if he'd had a competent doctor in the room. On September 27, 2011, Conrad Murray went on trial for involuntary manslaughter. Over 6 weeks, jurors heard from 49 witnesses. They saw the photo of Jackson dead on the gurney, and they heard something that stopped the courtroom cold. It was an audio recording found on Murray's own phone from weeks before Jackson died. On it, you can hear Michael Jackson, his speech slow and slurred and barely conscious, talking about his dreams for the tour and his love for his children. He says he wants to build a children's hospital. And then he says, "I love them because I didn't have a childhood. I had no childhood. I feel their pain." That was the state Murray's patient was in, and he kept administering the drugs anyway. On November 7, 2011, the jury found Conrad Murray guilty. He was sentenced to 4 years. But because of California overcrowding laws, he served less than 2 and walked free on October 28, 2013. Michael Jackson's death was never an unsolvable mystery. It was the direct result of a doctor's recklessness and an attempt to cover it up. The facts laid out in that courtroom cut through years of rumor and tabloid noise. But step back from the timeline for a second, and what you're left with is heartbreaking. A man who sang "Heal the World" spent his last conscious moments begging for a chemical just to get some rest. He was surrounded by staff, protected by security, watched over by a paid physician, and in the one moment he truly needed help, there was no one in that room actually listening. His organs were healthy. His comeback was days away. His kids were asleep down the hall. And all of it ended because the one person trusted to keep him safe was on the phone. If this story stayed with you, hit subscribe, because there's more like this coming, the real stories behind the headlines. And tell me in the comments, knowing everything you know now, do you think Michael Jackson's death was preventable?